Welcome to today's Coffee with Coach Caffey. I believe this is week 8. We are living in Abilene, Texas now, and so we're a day late in getting this out because we couldn't find everything. So one of the things I couldn't find was my razor, and so if I look especially shabby today, well, give me some grace on that. Today we're going to talk about Westbury Christian, very special place to me and to John David. When I first went there, quite honestly, we were maybe the weakest football team I'd ever coached. We had a lot of guys that had never played before, and we were very soft, and we weren't strong, and not great athletes, and which was really hard on us because Westbury Christian is a known basketball power, and so we had a basketball team that was nationally ranked, and had a football team that, like I said, was one of the weakest. So the first year we didn't win a game, but I can't talk about Westbury Christian without talking about the first day of spring ball. They brought me in May, I think about May 1st, from Sul Ross. I'd been coaching college football, and my first day of practice there, we went out in pads, and I had about 6 or 7 guys show up, and so it kind of sounds like a broken record. It sounds like Brentwood, but we didn't have very many kids, and we were actually having 11-man practice, and they'd played the year before, but some of the kids had gotten discouraged and didn't come back out, or at least didn't in the spring. And it was extremely hot. I was coming from Alpine, Texas, and I was so exhausted after that time. But I'd already moved all the way to Houston, and I felt like again that's where the Lord was calling me to be. The Lord had kind of spanked my behind and sent me there. Sul Ross, my job at Sul Ross had played out, and I needed a place to go. And for some reason, the year before, one of the a preacher from the church I was attending out in El Paso had told me about a job opportunity at Brentwood Christian, that they were looking for a coach. So at Westbury Christian, excuse me. And so I was looking for a job after my job at Sul Ross ran out, and so I called down and asked at Westbury if they still were interested in hiring a coach. And Bob McCloy's secretary said, "Well, let me put you in touch with Bob." And so sure enough, they were. I fit the bill for them. They brought me in. And so that's how I ended up there. And I think we had 25 or 26 kids come out in the fall. And we, like I said, we weren't very strong. We played a few ball games. We got knocked around a little bit. Our numbers got low, and so finally I just said, "Hey, anybody else want to come out for football?" It was the middle of the season. I was trying to survive, and so we did, and I got several good players out of that concession that we made. One of them was Corey Washington, which is he and I have had a long relationship with each other. He's coached with me and is taking over my job at Brentwood Christian next year. Another Aaron Stinnett, and I still remember walking into the locker room one day, and those two guys were in the back, and they were playing some music and kind of dancing around. Of course, Aaron was kind of crazy anyway, but I had no idea that Aaron was going to be one of the top scholars in the nation, but he was a lot of fun to be around. And so we took those guys, and they practiced a few times. We went out there to East Texas. I can't even remember the name of that school. Had a big Confederate flag painted on their field for homecoming, and they had a lot of fun beating us up that night. And so, but that we had some good times at Westbury, even though we were really bad. And you know, it was a tough time for me because I'd just come from being a college football coach to coaching a bunch of guys that didn't know sick 'em from coming here about football. And so, but you know, one of the things we decided to do, and I think this really helped us, is we decided since we were not physically strong enough, we had to work on that. And so a big part of our practice every day, we've continued this every year after that, and I think it's been part of what made us successful, is we lifted. We had a short practice. We ran option footballs there still, and we would go into the weight room and we would lift for about 20-25 minutes every day. I didn't really do a lot of conditioning because we could run pretty good, but we were too weak. We had a lot of offensive linemen that couldn't bench press but 130 pounds or so. And, you know, that was a big deal for us. Now, that first year we had a couple of good athletes. I had a kid named Mike Cottle that went to ACU and played a little tight end there. Big kid, very talented athlete, just didn't have a great understanding of playing football. And then we had a kid named Brandon Spencer that also was a great athlete and very fast. Had no idea how fast he was, and so he ended up winning a medal at the state track meet in 100 meters. And so we had a couple of guys that were good athletes out of that group, but we just needed to grow up. We were very young, and so you know. And the other thing is we need to develop some team chemistry, and not everybody got along real great with that group. One day there was this good-looking athlete showed up out there in summer workouts, and he had a big old afro on. And we got to talking with him, and he was coming from, I think, Booker T. Washington High School, and we got him, and he ended up being a very special football player. His name was George Russell, played for McNeese State, and was a starter for him, maybe all conference. I don't know. I think he was. And then of course, Corey Washington, who I mentioned earlier, he grew up in our program. Really, you know, he was in the band when I first got there, and he decided to come over and play some football. Opie Amusu, I can't remember the day Opie showed up, but he ended up playing college football also. Corey Washington played for ACU. Opie played up in Missouri at Truman State. Kelly Okorocha, I don't think he actually played at McNeese, but that's where he ended up over there and lives over that way now. Josh Gordon, he played in the NFL, one of the top receivers in the NFL. He was a freshman for us my last year there. Harold Gordon, his brother, played Greenville State up there. Jason Rice, I think, played some college baseball or basketball. I can't remember for sure. But he moved in and was our quarterback on our really good team. T. DePuy moved in and was a heck of an athlete and played running back. He came from a little six-man school. KP, Kevin Perry, he ended up playing tight end at UTEP. So you can see off of that team, we had some great athletes. I think had 7 or 8 that played college football off of that team. Not all the next year, but eventually did. And then our offensive line, we had several kids that really came through for us on that. Patrick Jefferson was a steady hand all the years I was there. And Opie, when Opie moved to the offensive line to help the team out, very unselfish. He really made us a lot better. So it took us 3 years, but we were I guess we were 7-4 that last year. Lost in the first round of playoffs to a good Hyde Park team, and we were amazingly better. And one of the things we had at Westbury, we had a lot of kids that came together for us there, and it's different than some of the other schools where I've just grown them up from, we just gathered them up from all over. And the Bible says, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." That's James 1:12. Well, I think that's the reason that our bond with those guys is so strong, is because we stood up under some trials. That first couple of years, it was like child abuse out there. George Russell got jacked up against Northland, and I still remember that. They used to have a segment on the TV station because he used to say, "You got jacked up." Well, George made that, but by the time George was a senior, he was doing the jacking up. He hit an old boy from Hyde Park so hard that it scared me. I thought he had hurt him bad. And so that quarterback, it turned out to be one of the worst things we did, because the backup they brought in beat us. But anyway, but George turned into a real physical, strong athlete, and he really played well. A lot of these kids, they really changed their lives during that 3-year period that I was there. Probably one of the guys I'm most proud of is a kid named Tim Smith. Tim was about 135-pound offensive tackle when I first went to Westbury Christian. And old Tim, he was a extremely hard worker. And, he worked in the weight room, and he worked so hard that it was impressive. He earned the respect of everybody on the team. But the day that I remember most about, a couple of days I remember about Tim, was one where he walked into the coach's office and said, "Coach, I want you to baptize me on Sunday." And so I went to church Sunday morning, and they had the invitation song, and Tim Smith, I still remember the way that he carried himself as he walked down to the front of the church. He was a man of determination. He was a man on a mission. And so I remember walking down to the front with Tim and taking his confession and baptizing him. And it was a very special time. I was also the senior Bible teacher at Westbury at that time. And so Leondi Lee was another kid from China that I baptized while I was there, and we baptized him in a private ceremony. And one of the most memorable things that happened at Westbury was we went for a whole year without winning a game. And so first game of our second year there, we were down on the coast at Sabine Pass, and so we had been practicing a victory song, and so we'd been saving that till we won. We never got to sing it. So we go down to Sabine Pass and we win the game, and we get to sing the victory song. Well, Andrew Long, who went to the Air Force Academy, he was our song leader, I think. That's the way I recall it. And George Russell was so happy that he was kind of dancing around. So it got to be a thing where and George and Andrew had not been the best of friends. They were kind of had a contentious relationship. Well, they got to where that they would sing this spiritual song together, and as they sang it, George would dance, and so everybody would would sing along. Well, we changed that song to the second year to this song, I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. That song. And so we changed it to that the second year, and but George continued to dance, and Andrew graduated. But anyway, it was it was fun. Those guys, they'd been through, they'd persevered under some trial, and they really had grown close together. And so, I still think about those guys when Nana Appentang and Brian Fagbemi, those guys are still special to me. They actually, as I became the athletic director here at Brentwood, I was able to hire, of course, Corey Washington to be my defensive coordinator, and then Brandon Green, one of our good basketball players from there, became our head basketball coach at Brentwood, and then Brian Fagbemi, more affectionately known as Beamy, became our business manager for the athletic department. So, I've been associated with that group of young men for a long time, and it was really special. So I hope I haven't muddled through this too much, because like I said, we were not prepared very well because of moving, and we're a day late on it. So I appreciate you watching, and wish you the best, and we'll see you next week. Bye.